Mr. DePratis?
Here.
Ms. Dorsch? Here. Ms. Ferguson? Here. Mr. Hagan?
Here.
Mr. Kennedy?
Here.
Ms. Lentz? Here. Mr. Marbury? Ms. Valenta? Here. Ms. Whip? Here. That is 8 present and 1 absent.
Thank you. We'll hold for the flag and everything else. We're going to run a meeting a little different than we usually run our 7 o'clock meeting. We are here to talk about the proposal of policy 707. It was posted today. It is a draft. The board is going to talk about the draft that we are proposing. There may be things the board wants to discuss in the public. And then after we are all done with that, we'll have public comment. So you guys know, we're allotting until 7 o'clock until the next meeting. So if the board discussion is only 3 minutes, then we'll have public comment until 7, just so you guys understand. So we do have a revised policy in front of us. You want to shoot the highlights off there, Dr. Bruce?
Yeah, I know the board has been working on this for a while. The first thing I'll call your attention to is on page 2 of 8, Class C. You know, the board had a lot of discussion about what Class C should look like. And it's basically individuals that are nonprofit status, who are within our borders, obviously. And prior to first use, it's demonstrating that at least 75% of its active membership or participants are residents of the Mars area school district. So I know individuals were contacting board members and wanting special consideration for those organizations that are local. You'll see in blue on page 2 of 8, scheduling priority will be given by class, with Class A having first priority, Class B second, Class C third, Class D obviously being the lowest. And I won't read through this because I know what most people are looking at would be the fee structure. So if you go to the very end of the document, again, this is just a draft to get the board talking. So what's that? Page 8. Oh yeah, page 8. This would be something that in the event an individual or community group violates the policy or terms under which permission was granted to use the facilities, that individual or community group forfeits the right to submit future requests and use school district property unless otherwise decided by the board, and may be charged a penalty of $500. What that is basically for, when the board was talking about Class C, folks claiming that they have 75% or more, that's a protection on the district that folks are going to say that to get a reduced rate, and then there end up being a Class D. So that's just a protection on the district. So they talked about, in that meeting, the board talked about that a fee could be charged and people could actually forfeit future requests being considered. So what most folks are probably interested in is if you go back to the facilities rental fee schedule, what was really taking a strong look at was Class C. I know our business office did a very thorough analysis. And I'm speaking for the board members can chime in. During the conversation that the board was having with us, they certainly don't want to charge and make a profit. The goal was to try to charge to recoup any fees that maybe the district may be expending for those groups. So there was an analysis done by sport from the various organizations. So if you look at the MAC, and again, I'm focusing in on Class C, which that seems to be where most of the concern was. It would be $35 an hour for the athletic complex. Stadium lights, if needed, would be $50 an hour. Concession stand 0 or 120. If you look at baseball fields, it was high, and then the first version of this, it was reduced, and then it was reduced again under this current, again, I keep saying draft and proposal because the board will have to discuss. The baseball field on Davidson Road would go down to $15 an hour for Class C. Obviously, basketball courts 0. Multi-purpose field 35 an hour, parking lots 10. Another change, soccer fields 1 and 2 on 3 Degree Road would go from $35 an hour to $15 an hour. The softball field's grass, again, went from $35 to $15 an hour. And then the turf field, obviously, which requires a little more upkeep maintenance, would be $25 an hour. When you go to the indoor facilities, Class C, again, that's 75% of the individuals being Morris residents. Cafeteria commons kitchen would be $30 an hour. Classroom conference room would go down to $10 an hour. Gymnasium, $30 an hour. And the large group at the high school would be $20 an hour. Again, if you look at the Class C, again, nonprofit community-based organizations and groups residents, in order to qualify, they need to be nonprofit prior to first usage. Again, provide evidence that at least 75% of the active membership and our participants are residents. Something I'll call your attention to, it says hourly rates or usage fees are applied when school is in session. There's no charge for any activities occurring before 6 o'clock on weekdays. That's, say, for example, if an outside group wants to sign up or something like that. The board is recommending no charge before 6 o'clock on weekday hours. The last piece is very important for those that use the facilities the most, and you'll see it in blue. An hourly rate discount of 50% will be applied to rental fees charged to an organization accumulating a minimum of 100 hours of facility rental hours during the course of the school year, July to June. Scheduling priority will be given to classes A, B, and C. So I know the conversation that the board had was trying to recognize those groups that are on our fields or using our facilities constantly. They'll get a reduced rate, 50% cut on those rates that we talked about. Personnel fees, if you look at there's additional personnel fees, not many of those things have changed. Again, the business office did an analysis. Custodian is going to go from $40 to $35 an hour. Security, if needed, would be $45 an hour. And then any surcharge fees, the bottom right-hand side, you'll see the reduction in some of those areas. So this was based on, the last meeting, there was, first of all, there was an initial policy. Then the board tried to update the policy again, which folks were still concerned about. So the board continued to work on this. And again, I'll speak for them. The goal was not to incur any type of profit. The goal was to try to look at any areas where the district is actually expending funds and break even. So that being said, I'll turn it over to the board. Any discussion on the current recommendation on the policy?
Good, Sam.
I'd just like to clarify, Dr. Gershon, you were reading that. There's a little asterisk with the Class D that goes down to point to the blue under Class D in the paragraph part in the middle. That does talk about the hourly rate being applied at 50% for those that use a minimum of 100 hours during the course of the school year. And you're reading that in conjunction with Class C. That's what I was hoping to see, that it was going to be for both those classes. So I want to clarify, is that how we're to read that Class C would get that same reduction?
That's my understanding. Board members can speak.
Because then the new blue rates be cut in half for those groups that use 100 hours or more.
Yeah, those that use the most.
For most of the groups that are here sitting
Sort of
here.
cut that way down. I know that was the board's goal.
So the softball field, your youth girls softball team, right? And the Class C rate is currently $15 an hour. You're saying if that organization were to book more than 100 hours parental time on the field, their hourly rate would drop to $17.50. $17.50.
Right.
Okay, so on
That was
here,
the discussion that the board had.
then, Class C,
That's not
the
what-
asterisk.
Yes.
Yeah, we just need to put the asterisk there as well.
I have 4 questions, I guess.
Did you say that's not what's here?
Yeah, because there's no
The
paragraph.
little hat.
Paragraph.
We need to add
that, right?
That's what Sally just said. She was actually clarifying that it should be there.
Little asterisk, be the C and D.
Yeah, it's pointing up. It's probably not the
It
greatest
was not,
spot.
it's not there because I wasn't sure at the time when I was putting this together. Because after looking at these rates, especially on the outdoor facilities, because those are break-even rates on those, class C, on the outdoor facilities. So I was not sure if that was gonna apply to those rates because they were actual break even, when the other rates on D are not, they're obviously a much higher rate. So we can certainly use that same language that we have in D and apply that to C if that's what the board would like.
With the bulk hour usage.
Yeah.
Not-
It's still the same word.
If
If there's no bulk hour usage offering, then this policy is still a detriment to the children of our community, is my concern. First of all, I'm not sure why we're continuing 75% of active membership of Mars School District when I would reckon that Mars soccer, Mars baseball, Mars lacrosse have a 90% of Mars residency usage of those facilities versus 75%. And then my secondary question is, where do the leases fall into this right now? I know we currently have a lease regarding Adams 1 and 2 with Mars baseball. I'm not sure when that expires, as well as a lease with Mars soccer. They would not be affected by this policy. Where does that fall into this?
It says that under class C, an exception would be granted for a lease agreement.
Pre-existing lease.
Pre-existing.
You don't want to be doing leases.
Well, so
trying to
that's
get
my
fair
question. What is our
for
plan
everybody.
regarding leases moving forward? Because I think it's only fair for those organizations to be aware of what the board's plan is regarding the use of these fields when their leases expire.
We have 2 existing long-term leases, and I believe it would be our intention and our legal obligation to stay true to those. I don't know when I'm trying to find my clock, I couldn't find it today, when the lease on the Berkshire Field expires. That would be 5 years or so. I don't know the answer to that, but I did look up for the soccer field. I believe it's 2039. Is that right, Aaron? That one was the acquisition of the property per court order, and then it was extended for an additional 10 years back, I guess, maybe 2 years ago. Yeah, so with some been investment in the soccer court. So that one I believe is really, really long term. I don't think that this board or even the next board or maybe even the board after that is going to be in any position to answer that. But with all of our leases, whether it be the youth baseball lease or with the youth soccer lease, there is always a termination notice built in because it is district property, it is taxpayer funded property, and if the district needed to use those assets for different purposes, then we would always have the right to be flexible there with some communication and coordination. But at this point, at least as far as I know, there is no other desired uses for those facilities or those assets, and I assume that we would just continue to stay compliant with the agreements.
My fear is this though, in 2039, I don't want to be sitting here and having Mars soccer getting an $80,000 bill like Mars baseball day. And that's my fear with the passing of this policy, is unless we can be sure that the bulk hour rates are going to have a long-term sustainability for our community organization, we're going to run the risk of our kids not being able to afford to play here at Mars. I don't want to sit here and have our fields sitting empty because our kids have to pay Pine Richland to utilize field. These are taxpayer paid for field. These are investments made by our community. For not just Mars students, kids who attend home school or cyber charter or private school utilize these fields. Kids who haven't matriculated to the school district. I think kids as young as 3 can play soccer. And we need to be very, very conscientious of that when we're looking at these types of things, because it seems like we're cutting these rates, but what we have to remember is a lot of these rates were 0 prior to 2020. So no matter what, this is an increase for organizations such as basketball, Boy Scouts, things like that.
It's hard to have. I mean, for me personally, we received so much information on this from other people who had done so much research, administration to give us information from other school districts. We have to do what's best here. But when you look at those other school districts, when we cut this in half, and it's written right here in the policy, if these are the rates and it's cut in half, and that's what it would be until there would be a change. And I wouldn't expect that hopefully there wouldn't be a change for some long time. But when you look at cutting these in half, it is very comparable to the least amount of charge, even
Get that.
yeah, and that's what we're doing. I mean, that's what I'm seeing. That's what I
As
expect here to have passed.
Because again, those costs are going to trickle down to parents. All of a sudden, you're going to see increased rates for every single community activity your kid is a part of. In order to be a part of it, to pay for it.
Yeah, and that's why the discount is important, I think, for those groups. Those are feeder groups into our organizations to get up into the district, so.
So I'm just gonna be devil's advocate here a little bit. So you have to remember, we're talking about Class C groups. These are not Class A groups, which are school district teams. These are not Class B groups. I'm sorry, I can either breathe or talk, right? So I have one option, so I'm doing the best I can here, okay? Class B groups would be for organizations that exist solely to support the school team. So that would be sort of for booster groups that are created from high school parents supporting high school teams, PTO supporting elementary students, Mars Planet Foundation. So those would be Class B groups. You have to sort of read under the definitions of the organizations. Then we get into Class C. Class C always seems to be because everything everybody said here is actually 100% true. There's nothing that's untrue about that. We all pay taxes. We all want our kids to be outside and play games and have fun and be involved in things that make them healthy and well. That's all very, very true. But these are Class C groups. Our facilities, our mission here at the district, of course, is education and providing a well-rounded program. The facilities that we have, whether they be a classroom or a field, exist to support our school teams, right? If we did not have a baseball team, we probably wouldn't have a baseball field. And in some cases, we don't have a pool, but we provide for a pool. So we provide for our teams one way or the other. Because we have invested taxpayer money in order to do that, we work hard to make the fields accessible to the local community groups, to our kids, right? However, they are not, those teams and those organizations are not directly affiliated with the school, right? We are not, say, a township. We're not Adams Township, we're not Middlesex Township, where some of their primary responsibilities are to provide recreation and amenities. That's what the township is, that's part of their mission. So this is why the policy exists. You can make the case that the school district should make this accessible and affordable, and we certainly don't want our fields empty, and we don't want our kids sitting at home. But you also have to understand that not all of our kids are involved in baseball or soccer or even the Boy Scouts. Some of them are in karate. Nobody's underwriting it. The school district is not making a contribution to the local karate school to make sure that those registration fees are accessible. Our kids are not, what if your kid is a dancer? Right? That's an extracurricular for what would be a Class C, student or somebody in the district, a youngster who's not affiliated with the school team. Nobody's asking the school district to make a contribution to the dance. My kids played soccer. They played cup soccer. I didn't ask the school district to make a contribution to my family or to my kids' soccer club so that it was more affordable for them. What I'm saying is their kids, we need to make it accessible. And I think that's the whole spirit of what Megan said and what Sally said. They need to be affordable, but there is a cost to the district to provide that. We're trying very, very hard and with great appreciation for Debbie Branstead, our new business manager, coming and defining the actual costs. And I'm going to hold that thought because I have something I want to say about that in a minute. But we are taking a really, really hard look at recouping our costs. We're not looking to make a profit. We're not looking to gouge anybody or to do anything. We're trying to make them accessible. We're trying to make it fair. We're trying to make the fields accessible. But there is to remember that what we have is not the only thing that's available. And by making the case that we're the only game in town isn't right, because there are other kids whose families pay taxes, and we're not underwriting somebody's karate class.
Or they could use the gym if they could afford it.
They could,
Maybe karate class.
right, but not everybody in every single instance is going to use this district facility. These are extracurricular activities for students who are participating in a program that is not directly affiliated with the school district. I know free is everybody's favorite thing. I get it. Everybody wants it to be free. Everybody wants it when they want. I get that. And there are a lot, but people want nice things, and there are costs to that. And in order to keep it nice and to have the district recoup its costs, there are some fees, and we are working really, really hard. Well, not we, Debbie is working really, really hard to really get down to the granular level of what it costs the district to maintain these facilities. Now, I will also say, built into that is, oh, Debbie, help me with the term, but is the depreciation, right? Or the card, right, of a turf field. On average, a turf field lasts 8 to 10 years. It costs hundreds and hundreds and hundreds of thousands of dollars to put in and or replace a turf field. Some of these costs are part of that depreciation, because at some point we're going to need to replace those turf fields for our school teams
Every 8 years.
every 8
Or
to
less,
10 years,
or
right?
shorter time.
We're going to have to replace those fields, okay? And if we don't do that for our school teams, then they're also not going to be available for our youth teams. So what I'd like to propose, and this was something that we had talked about at a very high level, there is a restricted capital improvement line that was created a couple of years ago, where just a little bit in the weeds, but where any budget excess, if you will, that's in the athletic fund, not in the general operating budget. I know everybody, right? This is the athletic fund. And there's a companion piece that came along later in the activities fund. You see through the Mars High School athletic fund, that's not the general operating budget. Everybody understand, we're talking about something different. If these are funds that exist to basically pay referees, and take ticket, change for ticket booth, and ticket revenue goes in there and all kind of rolls up, and it's very specific what it's used for. If at the end of the year there is an excess in those funds, per policy, and I have them in the stack paper here. 618.1 and 618. At the end of a school district fiscal year, any excess funds are rolled over into restricted capital fund. And currently, I think we have just over $100,000, I think, in those. We have, over the last couple of years, paid for some cycle replacements for uniforms. I know we paid for the band uniforms out of there. I think we're going to be, it's been recommended that we use some of those funds to replace some musical instruments, things like that. It's a nice way of taking funds that were generated through the activities and the athletics, rolling it back into a restricted fund, so those funds go back out to support those programs going forward. I would like to suggest that we add to these policies that we take any rental fees from acquired through Class C and Class B groups, and just like we do here with the excesses in these funds, if there are any, not every year, sometimes there's a lot, sometimes a little, it just depends, that we start rolling those fees as they come in to this capital improvement fund for athletics and activities, so that we start building up a nest egg for replacement of our facilities as needed. That way, while the fees may not be free, at least you can perhaps feel a little bit more positive about it, knowing that it is going to help underwrite the sustainability of those facilities, and perhaps even do something new going forward. So, but because if we don't do that, or some version of that, then we're going to have to replace those facilities anyway. And we would do that not because the youth programs needed them. We would do that because the school programs needed them, and we make them accessible to the youth programs. So that is the spirit of what we're trying to do here. I know it's not free. I know people would love to hear that it's free, but there are costs. And if we can maybe channel those fees into a place where they can produce an outcome for the future, start building up a nest egg, so that we can continue to have nice things into the future. So I would like to make that recommendation for these policies as well.
Even to that point, to your point, the blue and the existing black in that in the column where Debbie had made the changes, those are our recuperation costs, bare bones recuperation costs. It is just for the field. And if we cut that in half, as we're talking about here for the Class C and the Class D views over 100 hours, we're not even recuperating the cost, because we understand, like, that's what, when Steele's point here, we're trying to make it as affordable as possible, but still recoup some for the use that's gonna be on those fields and those facilities.
So, and I will tell you, because I was part of this, we kind of got bounced off our game. Our policy, our facility, use of facilities policy, for many, many years was based on the premise of recouping our costs to some degree. We didn't change the fees in those policies for years. So cost those fees low, in some cases zeros for many, many years. When we put in the turf fields, they were very affordable, if you will. And we had people coming from everywhere using those fields. We were the cheapest game in town. I know you know, Aaron, right? We were the cheapest game in town, and people were coming all over the place. The previous administration had made a recommendation that this was an opportunity to we had a demand, if you will, and raise the cost to be competitive with the surrounding areas. We've learned a lot about that since then. And we kind of got bounced off our game. We kind of got bounced off our game in terms of what the premise was of the policy that worked for so many years. We accepted that recommendation and just, you know, supply and demand economics, right? So when the cost went up, demand went down, and then it created a whole lot of other problems. So we are trying to get back to zero, get back to where we started, but we're also trying to right size it and right time it for the cost that exists today. The costs that existed 15 years ago might not still be the same costs as they were. So we, and Debbie, she's worked really, really hard on this to do a granular analysis of what it actually costs, including depreciation in some cases. The cost, if you have to have a person there, a school district employee there, it is it is actually the real-time costs, and sometimes that would go up, you know. And those may have to change from year to year, because those costs, with every contract, with everything that comes up, those costs go up every year. So, but I think the rental rates are in pretty good shape, and those should remain flat, I think, for at least for a little while, and we'll have to keep taking a look at the staffing. But this is getting back to the premise of making the fields accessible to our tax-paying residents, not to make a profit, but to reduce our costs. Hopefully, if we can channel those dollars into a nest egg, that would be great, so we can sustain and continue to have nice things. And then the analysis would show that these are the actual numbers, not any more, not any less. This is what they are. So
On that point, just a couple things I'd like to share from my experience on this group of relooking at these policies and stuff. We do know that the data that was collected by the district, what I learned from the last meeting we had last week, was that data was collected 3 years ago. And at that time, when that data was collected from districts such as Pine Ridgeland, Seneca Valley, and North Allegheny, there was no waiver for local community groups. And it wasn't until this issue surfaced again, and that other bill was sent out to the baseball organization that somebody else brought forward, that since the original data was collected 3 years ago, those districts either have put a $5 fee in or have waived those fees for an organization that consists of 98% of residents for different districts. So North Allegheny has a 98% requirement. Everybody on that organization, that youth organization or nonprofit organization, has to be North Allegheny resident, 98%, not 75. So like Megan, I'm a little confused as to where that 75% figure comes from. This is the different organization folks that I've spoke with in the Mars area have all committed that they have at least 95% or greater participation from Mars area school district students. And I understand the importance of seeing why they need to do majority students in this district, because it's the taxpayers in this district that are paying tax dollars that go towards these facilities. So Pine Ridgeland implemented something very similar, and Seneca Valley did something a little bit different, but again acknowledges fee in exchange for maintenance of certain facilities being waived or lowered. And many of these fees are zero for Seneca Valley, zero for Pine Ridgeland, zero for North Allegheny, or $5 for Pine Ridgeland for community sports, because we don't want to bankrupt youth sports organizations. We do want to provide a place for all students to have the ability to play, especially at the younger grades, that have the opportunity to work on teamwork and exposure to different sports and feel part of the community. My understanding is that there are over 80 girls in youth girls basketball. I think the fee for that was somewhere between $5 to $18 an hour, now being proposed to go to 35, and now we're back down to $7.50, I guess. I'm not really even sure based on the way this is working. So still 30. Okay.
I think she was talking about the.
I don't understand it, but either way, there are 80 girls, 130 boys playing, those parents today, those 80 girls are paying somewhere between around $225. They have to increase it significantly for a child to play for a season. And if you have multiple children, that's a lot of money to be paying for someone that has multiple children. It just seems like a lot to be asking. And these other districts, since we originally collected the data, have seen the writing on the wall and have realized that you need to offer a rate that's more reasonable. And it's not just the youth sports organizations, it is Boy Scouts too, which has been affected. They reached out and they told us that they were affected by this policy as well. These are nonprofit organizations. They're financed by volunteers. They collect the money for insurance, uniforms, and equipment. And while I fully understand that our community, unlike the others surrounding us, North Allegheny, Pine Ridgeland, Seneca Valley, they do have a YMCA in their community. They do have a community center that they can fall back on. But even still, those youth organizations and those communities have been able to work with their school district to make sure that their facilities are still available to the students that are in their district. And it's disappointing to me that we would take a motion or approve something tonight that is adverse and could adversely affect
We're not
youth
approving,
programs in our area.
we're not approving anything.
I think it's important to note too, who feeds the school district teams? You don't just come into ninth grade playing basketball. You've played it for years, and that's how you become a player at the school district. Not to mention, I heard you mentioning the cost of replacing the turf on the mat. If your child plays baseball, they won't play on that mat. So the fees from Adams 1 and 2 going to pay to returf the mat don't necessarily make sense in this whole grand scheme of things.
And there are plenty of children in this district that will never step foot on the football field, but their parents are paying taxes to go and fund those facilities. There are plenty of students in this area that won't step foot on the baseball fields or on the lacrosse field, but their parents are still paying. And what I'm hearing is we're going to go ahead and raise some fees or adjust them and then funnel that money back into the maintenance of the facilities that do need additional turf and do need upgrades made to them. So not only are the parents paying the first time around for school taxes, but if the children want to play a youth sport, they're going to pay again on a field that their child might or might not ever use in high school. I struggle with that.
I just want to say one thing really quick as I'm trying to wrap our heads around everything you're saying. And I appreciate what you're saying. When Debbie was doing the numbers, Debbie, you did take each of these rates for the maintenance of that particular field or facility, correct? So all this, we have the funnel of the money, however this is done, would be to maintenance whatever field is being used. Because if you look at the rates, for instance, the MAC has turf, but some of these fields not. It's all the other maintenance of the fields, dirt bringing in, whatever it is, the cost that she went through. Yeah. She went through it individually. So it wouldn't be that people aren't on the MAC and they're paying, but they're paying whatever field they're on.
Right, but we're also talking about funneling those fees, but I heard Dale say is funneling the fees that are generated through.
Those are all the, I believe it'd be for, well, I guess it'd be for the MAC, then we have the fees, no matter where it's coming from, you're still resurfacing and that's something to understand, I guess.
That would be really
important. We need to understand that we run the athletics and the activities as a program. Right, it is a line item in the budget. They are funds that support multiple sports and multiple activities. So it's not like it's this dollar goes in the football bucket and this one goes in the Boy Scout bucket and this one goes up, but we run it as a program.
Well, and one other question to your point, Christine, is you have Seneca in there, but the other school districts for Allegheny County. I'm just curious if you did price out. I called a bunch of Butler districts and no one has gotten back to me. I know this 3 days ago. Because on the website, you can't always get all the information that you found. You go on the website, it says Pine Ridge, and you pay $5 and $10. But there's, certain schools have different agreements. We don't have as big a tax base as some of those Allegheny school districts that may be able to discount more than maybe we can. So something to keep in mind for everybody here. And actually, I'd like to have more information, if you're bringing that forward, to the Butler school districts, Knox, Armstrong, Montauk, like those type of districts, to understand how they're doing and how they're pricing. I did put calls in and haven't heard back, but that's where I'm more curious, because the tax base is very different. We're trying to make these so reasonable, but I understand what's being said. It's just, it's tough. I mean, when you're trying to wrap your head around it, there's a lot to take into consideration. It really
The
is.
challenge for me, Sally, was that we were willing to take 75% participation rate of district students from the Pine Ridgeland,
And I don't think that
policy,
matters.
but we
what's
weren't
being
able
done.
to take the dollar amount from Pine
Well,
Ridgeland.
I think that first of all, the dollar amount is $10 and $15 for a lot of their facilities. So all of their gymnasiums are $10. In addition to that, they have a site manager fee. I have the policy right here. I spoke to the business manager last week. It's $10 for their gymnasiums, plus the site manager fee of $35 per hour for classes 2, 3, and 4. So it's not $5 for the gymnasiums. I'm not sure where you have that information, but it is $10 for their gymnasiums. Some of their other fields are 15. Baseball fields are $10 per hour for that class 2. That is their 75% nonprofit. But there is, as I mentioned, there is a site manager fee that is in addition to that fee of the $10. And that is $35.
I'm looking at their policy that's
This
printed
is
off.
off their website. This is their
Right, this
rental
is the
fees.
front, and here's the second page. On the back, it says class 3 for profit, class 2.
What they say right off their website.
And class 2 shows for like a football field or a gym, $5 an hour.
But no, this is,
Well, I don't know, we obviously have different copies because mine clearly states $5 an hour.
I got this off their website today and I spoke with their business manager on Friday. So these are the
Just,
updated rates here.
one thought, not that I'm advocating one or the other. These may wind up at $5, they might have wind up at $50, but just to take a step back for a minute, all of this money, wherever it comes from, whatever costs it takes to maintain anything in this district, whether it's offset by some of these fees or it's not, and we decide to make it zero, we're still going to have to maintain the facilities. We're still going to have to try to replace the turf at some point. And all of that money comes from your tax money, one way or the other, whether you paid in the fee, whether you paid in taxes. If we don't have enough money to repair them, we raise taxes. So it's all, it's not school district money, it's our money. It's all of our money. You're all taxpayers. Every dollar that gets spent out of one bucket or the other. So just keep in mind, the money's coming from somewhere and it's coming from your tax dollars one way or the other. Whatever we decide to do, I'm not advocating one or the other. It's all fantastic points. But nobody's taking money from somebody else and spending somebody else's money. It's all our money and it's all in one, ultimately one big bucket that comes from one big place. So everybody here is paying for whatever we decide, just something to keep in mind.
Any other board discussion? So what we're gonna do is we're gonna post this. Oh, we already did post it. Does anyone want to make any changes? Is there something that's,
You have to fix that hat on the C class, John, and
You
make
know
sure
what
that
everybody
that's
wants
clear
that,
under that
everybody wants
C.
that 50% to apply to C as well.
Or the
It really
bulk
becomes
usage, I
unaffordable
think
for
it's
you to
reasonable.
activate.
Because then it gets it, because it seems that most of the concern is for the high usage groups.
Right.
That when you get 100, 200 hours, and some of these groups are gonna get that when you have that many.
I hope
users.
most would, I would hope most would.
They're
I'm
gonna-
hit
they're gonna
that,
get
yeah,
that
look
target.
at that, say 50, but I would think 100.
I just have
It'll
a
be
question.
basketball, youth wrestling, like the baseball. So
They hit that.
And we'll hit that. Okay, that was my question. Do most of the stakeholders here that are most interested in this, are they going to be able to hit that number?
Okay.
Because if it's 80 is the number, then we'll make it 80.
Right,
You know,
right.
I get the spirit of what we're trying to do. We do want to service the majority of the groups. What we don't want to do is miss one of our important groups over 10 hours.
Right.
That's not
Very
right.
good,
So,
yeah.
And my only concern with the
Right.
25% is that you're going to have people make for-profit businesses that will be able to fall into class B if they have 75% bars versus you need organizations that would in turn have 9% March state.
You have to be nonprofit, PNC.
You have to be a nonprofit.
Well, but
We can up that, if we want, we can up that.
I'd like
Most of them are.
I'd like to change 75 to 90% at a
I don't have a
minimum
problem.
and have it be during the duration of
But I
the
would-
season, not just.
That's
at the
actually more
beginning.
restrictive, aren't
Yeah.
you? You're talking about being more restricted than we are now. By raising it to 75, to try to match Pine, you're actually
Because
making it more
Anthony,
restrictive.
I'm saying raise it from 75 to 90 because they should be, the majority of the folks using these facilities, if we're going to go based on the fact that we want district residents who have already paid taxes to build these facilities and continue to finance them, then they should be comprised, majority of them as district.
I don't disagree with you.
That's the thoughts. I don't care if we want to make it more strict.
I would also like to hear from community members before we decide if we want to make changes or not regarding some of this. Specifically, are you an organization that you feel you have 90% of?
So any other board comment, question, talk right now? Because we are scheduled for a 7 o'clock regular meeting, just so everyone's aware. There was 2 people that signed up to speak on public comment first. It was Brett Schultz, was the first person that requested. So is Brett Schultz available?
I don't know.
He had the baseball thing, but I'm not sure.
Yeah,
He
so
might be online. He said he was gonna be online.
So he was the first person who requested.
Aaron is.
Aaron is the second, Aaron Best is the second person. So if you could just state your name, your address, and you'll have 3 minutes.
And the district's happy to accept those projects on behalf of those organizations, yet they're asking us to pay 3 times as much as we have in the past to rent the facilities. So thank you for your time.
Thank you.
Can I make a clarification?
Yes, please.
So I'm sorry if I was not clear, and I know there's a lot of nuts and bolts to this, and not everyone is coming to this conversation with the same context. My point is that it's not necessarily what currently exists today is that through the athletic and activity fund at the end of the year, which is a culmination of a variety of sports and a variety of activities through so it's fine. Not specific activities, but the overall balance of the line item. Those get rolled over if there is extra at the end of the year. It's not everybody's specific rental every single day, every single minute of every day. It's the balance at the end of the year. So that already exists today. It has for, I don't know, 5, 6, 7 years. It's been around for a while. What I'm suggesting as an additive measure is that regardless of whether you're paying a $10 fee or $30 or a $100 fee, whether you're a Class D, that's there a little bit higher, regardless, that we instead of that we take those revenues and put them in, rolled it into this account. So it's sort of a second source for this fund. So it is not, and I think what Christine was saying is that, well, if they're going over here, then they're not going into the general operating budget. And I did ask Debbie that question, and Debbie, the answer was, is what's the impact to the general operating budget if the rental fees, whether you be a Class C or a Class D, were redirected? Is it a significant impact to the budget?
Yeah.
Right. So what it would do then, it would just sort of, when the time came to replace something, lots of kids won't ever wear a band uniform, but we paid for the band uniforms, which were very expensive, out of that fund. We paid for things over the years. So it would be just a secondary source of revenue for that particular fund that goes to offset the inevitable cost of running those programs, which are good.
So I think what I hear you saying is that it just ensures that the dollars that are spent on activity fees are used back for activities.
Exactly.
Very
Well, the rental
a
fees.
high level summary of it.
That's exactly right. So it just.
Yeah, not all, but yeah, whatever, yeah.
But
only
it's
that.
not like it's a new concept. It's
No,
simply, the original concept has been in place for many years. I am just suggesting that we take these and give it as a secondary source. That's all. So I'm sorry if I was not clear on that. I hope that explains it a little better. I'm not sure that it did, but I tried.
Just really quickly curious to Aaron, Beth's question, if there are any groups besides the Boy Scouts or these 90% or 75% groups that fall into Class C or nonprofits that would exist, where we couldn't just make a flat discounted rate for that group C class. I don't know if that's possible, if there's anybody making a profit there for any reason, like a tournament or something. There may be a different way to word this where you can, if there's only one or two outlying groups that still fit every other category except for the hourly, the bulk hourly amount. I'm just looking, I'm thinking maybe that's the only group that would be an outlier here. I don't know. I'm just looking when we're trying to think about changes. That's something we could consider, maybe a different wording for the C class, to say, unless someone is using it for things like a tournament or something that could make some money, that they would fall into this category and get that cut rate. I mean, D makes sense to me, but for the C, you don't want to see someone like the Boy Scouts being the only group left out of a discount just because of the hours they're using. That's just my personal little caveat to think about.
I would agree with Sally. When I look at the list, I think that if you're going to discount C, you should discount everyone C.
Well, that would be the answer, is you just discount.
Nonprofit 90% or
Unless
75%.
there would be doing, and I would agree, because the bulk of users are the higher utilization, but there are a few that have just a small amount of usage. So it would be nominal.
They wouldn't have to track hours then for C.
It would be so hard.
Exactly. Yeah, because there would be a lot of time spent tracking that, and what if someone, because we had talked previously about having to schedule separately and do some scheduling and just the managing of scheduling, and how would we track that to, if someone has rainouts or those types of things, and they commit to 100, so it would be a matter of tracking it. It would be quite a undertaking administratively, I think. So if you're going to do the discount for those users, there are just a few, I think, especially upping it to the 90%.
Right.
I think you could then just apply that discount to everyone in the C, unless there's a tournament or some type of fundraising activity. And then I would suggest that you use the rates that we have listed here for those activities, would be my suggestion, because they are charging, that's a fundraiser. There's money on that. So that would be a suggestion you could do for that as well.
Leave the discount for D in place.
Yeah, that could stay the same. That makes sense there.
Yes. Because there's fewer people that reach 100 hours in class.
Right.
I'd like to try to get some public comment.
Yeah.
So we'll start with in-room. Does anyone wish to have public comment? So just say your name and address.
Nadine Christie at 104 Valley Brook Drive. Just right off the bat, I do have a question and clarification for the custodian fee. Usually that was charged on a weekend. Is that still the same? I'm sorry if I missed it in the policy.
Yes, that would be when there would be someone
So it's still how it's always been. Okay. And so when you talk about discounting it or the 50% or whatever you might do, does that affect that fee as well?
Good
The
question.
custodian fee?
Great question. No. That I would,
Just the
that is a direct payment to them,
Okay.
right?
Yeah.
Yeah, that is right, that is the fund. I mean,
That's what we're paying for that person to come in on a day that they wouldn't normally be there.
That's a great
That's my
question.
thought.
Yeah.
Throwing it out there.
It's 50% of the rental fee.
Just the rental fee. Okay. And if I can I speak now on behalf? I'll stand up. I feel bad.
It's your 3 minutes. So if you
Okay.
wanna do it, you got 2 left.
As I said, I'm Nadine Chrissy, and I am involved in both the boys and the girls youth basketball programs. And I wrote you guys a letter, and I hope some of you had a chance to read that. And something that I did forget to mention in that letter that's been brought up a lot tonight is in order to participate in both the boys and the girls basketball programs, the youth basketball programs, you have to live in the Mars Area School District. Matter of fact, in the girls, I know their bylaws a lot better. I've worked with them a lot over the years. It's clearly written in our bylaws. You have to live in the school district. So I'm not sure about everybody else's, so I don't want to speak on behalf of any other organization. And then the only other thing that I want to add on when you guys think about this policy and whatever you guys choose to do, this year with basketball, we had like a little sneak peek in how much the Mars gyms mean to our programs and how much we need them. Because of COVID, we weren't allowed in any of the schools. So we were so grateful and thankful we were able to use a gym over in Wexford. And it was really expensive. So because it cost so much, we had such limited gym time for our programs. And we made the best of it, but the girls, I know on their side, we weren't even able to offer the second and third graders our in-house program. We didn't even get to have it for them. And we had so many inquiries, and it was horrible for us as a board to have to keep on telling them no. And with the boys, because it was so expensive, we were cramming 2 teams in a practice, like just trying to get the most of it. And we made it work, and it wasn't ideal, but I just want you guys to truly realize how that increased fee truly impacts our programs. And when I say the programs, I mean the kids. So, I mean, just keep that, and we're not, and I speak for basketball, we're not here to ask for the facility for free. It never has been free to our associations, and that's not what we're asking for. Our thing is we just want to keep it how it's been. I know girls have been in existence for about 10 years, and our registration fee has not changed. The only thing that has changed is maybe the cost of uniforms, but sometimes uniforms are handed down to siblings. So our cost to play has not changed. And we just want to hold on to that. And I think that some of you who probably have kids who have gone through the school, and some of you maybe who still have little ones who truly aren't in it, whereas I'm kind of like right smack in it right now. I have 1 that's left the youth programs and 2 that are still in it. And you honestly want to stay within the Mars community sports programs or as long as you can, because the second that one of your kids comes to you and is like, can I work with this trainer, or I really want to join this club team, or whatever it might be, it's so expensive. So I think I just truly hold on to, we just want to keep the finances for basketball, at least. We just want to keep it the same. That's all we're asking for. Thank you.
Just one quick question.
Yeah.
And I apologize, maybe somebody else knows this because this has changed so many times, I could not go back and find the original one. What were you paying for the?
Sure. So we take $17 an hour.
Oh, it's about 15. That should be better.
But we paid 30 for the custodian.
Oh,
So if we're up to
so-
35 now, but I mean,
It might be worked out, yeah.
right,
Okay.
right.
All right.
That's good.
So thank you for like clarifying, like right off the bat, when you clarified
There
where
was
C
so
would
much
fall.
time.
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah.
Thank you.
Excellent. Good.
Thank you. We're gonna squeeze, looks like 1 more in, so, go ahead, state your name and address, and you'll have 3 minutes.
Aaron Woolerton, I'm 207 Hook Street in the borough, and obviously I'm here on behalf of the soccer club. Just 2 points that I wanted to make sure that everybody is, actually, yes, maybe one is a question. The first one is a point. I think a lot of the concern and tension that you're seeing is, as you guys are probably well aware of, athletic facilities in our area right now are at a ridiculous premium. Speaking on the part of soccer, lacrosse, field hockey, organizations like that, There are 8 multi-purpose fields in the Mars Area School District. 4 of them are owned by the school. Others are being talked about coming online, but those are years out. And every single one of us, soccer, lacrosse, all of the multi-purpose field users are cramped for space. And there's a pretty strong probability that some of that space is going to be going away in the near future, which is only going to make all of our difficulties that much more keenly felt. So I appreciate you guys working through this because, yes, Seneca has Grand Park and North Boundary Park. Pine has Richland Park and Pine Park. We don't have those opportunities here. Now, the soccer club, as well as a couple of the other organizations, we're working with Middlesex Township, we're working with Adams Township, we're working with the borough, we're trying to get those facilities to come online. But it's 2, 3, maybe 5 years out minimum before we're gonna be able to start playing on those kinds of facilities. Secondly, Sally, I believe that you mentioned it, and Debbie, maybe you're the best one to answer this question. Did you guys look into the cooperative agreements that some of the other community athletic organizations have with the school districts, with the municipalities?
That's what I called, but they haven't, no one gets, I mean, honestly, Aaron.
Because I can answer-
Just me, but I mean,
I have.
Trying to research too, so.
I've reached out to all my sister clubs, so if anybody would like information on what those agreements look like for the school districts and the communities, whatever, I have pages of notes and I'd be happy to help out with.
I just on my
whatever
own
information
wanted
there
to
is.
know on my own for coming to a meeting and would share if I got it. I didn't.
Because a lot of them, there's no sense in us trying to reinvent the wheel.
Sure.
When others, especially again, like Seneca, which is a much bigger organization and has a much more difficult time managing these things, they figured out a solution that works for them. So there's got to be at least good ideas there that we can take on and make our lives easier to try to sort out.
And I appreciate that, Aaron, but the one thing too, is each district's so different too, like with their tax
Absolutely.
base and with the
Exactly,
facilities that they have to manage.
So there's
So we're
probably some
gonna
best
do,
practices there that we
there's
can
some,
pull in.
just to get some idea of what's out there, but again, to look at what we, personally have to be able to manage.
Find the pieces that work for us and avoid maybe some of the mistakes that they've made.
I'll be trying to get all that.
Thank you. That kind of concludes, we didn't have much time for public comment because we have another public meeting at 7 o'clock. Are we just gonna revisit this again?
You can have public.
Debbie, myself, and we'll get together, try to make tweaks that we think will capture the conversation and then send something out again and then you can take another look at it.
What might make sense, when we did this sort of the quick from waive the 30-day posting,
Mhm.
maybe the best next step would be to put our best foot forward
Mhm.
and then post it for 30 days for public comment and then get some feedback from there.
To keep it.
I have to say, we post lots of things for 30-day public comment. It's silence is absolutely deafening. So if you
This
have,
would probably be different.
well, you'd be surprised. But here, got some good feedback tonight. I think administratively, they could come up with something that reflects the spirit that we talk about here and the concerns that, that come forward, I guess, where we are now. And then we can post it and then, but then maybe then 30 days, you can have something final to move forward with, because this uncertainty is not good for any organization.
All right, can I have a motion to adjourn?
Second.
All in favor, aye?
Aye.
So the special meeting is adjourned.
and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Have a roll call, please.
Ms. Dorr? Here. Ms. Ferguson? Mr. Hagan?
Here.
Mr. Kennedy?
Here.
Ms. Lance?
Here.
Mr. Mulberger? Ms. Valento? Here. Ms. Witt? Here. And Mr. DeKretz?
Here.
That's 8 present and 1 absent.
Okay, tonight we have a presentation from Jamie DeMarco for a dance team proposal. So Jamie, the floor is yours. You can stay back there, up here, wherever you feel comfortable.
Okay, I don't want to talk to anybody, so I kind of stand right up here. So my name is Jamie DeMarco. I moved into your district in August. However, I've been working in your community for years. I have actually done your musical for the past 3 years. I've been a choreographer for musical and UDMB started, so that's been awesome. But when I got here, I realized that there was a lack of a dance team. Years ago, I think in 2003, I started a dance team at Seneca Valley. I also started one at La Roche College, so I've started them from the ground up. I've danced my whole entire life. I currently teach anything in dance. You have questions on my father's dancer. But I have a proposal. I don't know if anybody needs a copy. I did send it. If you need a copy, please raise your hand. I would love to drop them off to you. I have 12 of them. Anybody? We're in the community. Need one? No, we all have them? Okay. So my goal is to start a dance team for grades 9 through 12. To start off, it would perform at basketball games and at football games. I understand that like the home away thing, I'm completely open to a discussion on how that works. The way that I set it up at Seneca Valley, their dance team for football travels for home and away games. For basketball games, they do home games only. We also did different things like senior night for, boys soccer, girls basketball games here or there, just to bring school spirit and things like that. I do know that you do have a cheer program here. Your cheer program for varsity is 9 through 12. Your cheer program for JV is 9 through 11. I do know that tapping into a dance team hits an entire new group of students, an entire new group of kids. You have 10 dance studios in a 7-mile radius of your district. I think if I'm correct, 6 of those are only in the Mars School District alone. So you're hitting another group of kids that might not be trying out for cheering, or you might have kids that are trying out for cheering that are dancers as close as they can get to dance to do something in the school district. For the first year, from what I understand, your district has to be a club team. I don't know if it's 1 year or 2 years of working to become an actual sport. I'm not 100% sure how that works here. Again, I'm new to your district. I also looked into dance teams. Every district in the Butler County area and in your surrounding districts have dance teams. So everywhere from Butler, Seneca Valley, Pine Ridgeland, NA, Butler, all of those schools that are surrounding here that go the whole way down the riverside, Elwood City, they all have dance teams, which is, again, tapping into another group of students. It's something that I feel could be very beneficial. Last year alone, when I did the Mars musical, there were 12 seniors that were cut from the cheer team that had cheer from 9 to 11, but based on the way that the roles are set up, which is fine for cheer, 12 seniors were cut. 6 of them were in my musical. 6 of those kids, as what started the ball rolling in my head, were like, we would do anything to have a dance team. The only reason we cheered was because of dance. And there's not a lot of female-based, now boys can make a dance team, female-based activities that are not just a sport like basketball, lacrosse, soccer. So that started my head turning last year, whenever this all went down, into starting something. Once I moved to your district, I said, why not? I'll put a proposal together, send it out. It's something that I would love to do in your community. I have extreme experience in building a program like this from the ground up. So kind of where I'm at, and I'm open to any questions or statements that anybody has. I also brought videos if you need them, if you would like to keep them, if you want to look at them, from what I did at Seneca Valley of how it was set up. At Seneca Valley, I worked cohesively with the cheer team. So it wasn't one against the other. It was a bond. It was like a bond that we had together. The way that it worked for football is that on the track in front of the student section for one half was the cheerleaders, and the dance team was down across from the parent section. At the half, we switched. Seneca was really great because they have a lot. They have palms and flags and band. So what the band did, they were super kind. They actually cut their halftime show short so that the dance team could perform on the field as well. We all worked together as one cohesive team when it came to the arts for the students. For basketball, we did the same thing. We switched, and then we shared with the cheer squad for halftime is the way that we did it at Seneca Valley. Now, my ultimate goal years down the road, if this happened, would be there would be a junior high team, a 9th and 10th grade team, and an 11th and 12th grade team. But right now, with it starting off, I would like it to be 9 through 12. That would support the varsity team for right now. Obviously, I would love it to see it to go something bigger, like the cheer squads. They're starting to be competitive. I also did competitive at LaRoche College, so I also have had that experience to take a dance team to that level as well. I'm trying to think what else I wanted to say. Oh yeah, so at the basketball games, we shared with the cheerleaders. Our boosters umbrellaed both of us. We did not share funds. I did talk to the lady that runs the boosters for the cheer squad, and it was something that they were open to talk about too. So if we raised money underneath dance team, we kept our money. We did not share it with the cheerleading facility and vice versa. But since we were umbrella, the way that the taxes and all the funding worked, it was able to be under one. We had to start a new foundation up. I did talk to them. They did. The lady that runs it did say it was something that it was possible for us to do as well. But kind of try to touch base on everything before I came in. For any other questions?
What kind of numbers are you talking?
So that's a great question. So to start this off, I have no idea how it would take off. I would feel like the least amount of kids that I would love to have would be 10. But it's really hard to put a number on that for me. The reason is that this thing would blow up and it would be amazing, and there would be 60, which is an extreme number, I know, 60 kids that came out to try. I wouldn't want to turn away 50 kids. So I would say, since it's a club sport, since it can't be an actual sport yet, if I could take 30 kids, I'd take 30 kids. But if 30 kids come, then I would take 20. Or if 30 kids come and they're all great, then I would take 30 kids. So it's really hard for me to have a cap because I'm not a sport that has uniforms or that needs funding through the school. So I would like to see how it pans out to see what that number would be. If I have to have a number, I would limit that number and give you a number.
Jamie, what's your time table? If you're talking about performing at football games.
Yes.
So that would be
Soon.
in August.
Yeah.
So how would that work?
So I would ask that you guys would be able to vote on this sooner than later. I don't know how that works with you guys. But I would love to start it this summer. I would love to get something sent out through emails for the school. I would love to get signups going, whether it's like we for cheer, because my daughter does cheer for you guys, use a band app or a WhatsApp and get, people in, get people moving, do, auditions or tryouts, however you guys want to call that. And then start camps where we would learn most of our stuff. I know facility and gym time is very limited here. For the musical, it was the same way. The way that I choreographed the musical was that in the auditorium, like when you enter the auditorium, between the auditorium doors and those windows that are there, that's where we actually practiced. So to choreograph the entire musical, we didn't always have the stage due to chorus concerts. So I do have that space. I don't always need gym, like specific times. I would like for them to practice twice a week. But my goal would be to have all of the choreography done in the summertime for it. What they do is during timeouts or pauses in the game, that we had a speaker. This is for Seneca, the way that I did it. Like, again, I have videos if you guys would like to take them and look at them, you're welcome. They would play the music during that time, not over the loudspeaker. They had their own speaker that was down by the field. And that's when they would perform. During the times where the game was not, or the game was on, they would turn around and watch the game. So my goal would be to have all of that done for that time period. And then over like by Christmas time, break-ish, we would start into basketball.
Jimmy, so there would be tryouts, right? I'm assuming based on your other schools, you have a well laid out system for how you will do tryouts and cuts and
yeah.
all that.
So actually, I followed the Universal Dance Association, the UDA, as part of, and they have their own online tryout forms and everything like that.
Thank you for bringing this forward to us. I know some people probably have more questions, but it's nice to see somebody willing to take on a project of this magnitude and bring it forward to help our kids. So thank you.
You're welcome. Yeah, like I said, I just started hearing it over the past 3 years that I've worked in your musical, which has been a wonderful experience. That so many kids were looking for another opportunity because you see a lot of kids leave to go to like Lincoln Park or Kappa. because school districts don't offer, whether it's in the school district, like I know Seneca has a dance program now, but when there's a lack of the art to see children leaving. I've actually had 3 people so far that have heard about this community, which is a very small community, gets around really quickly, from North Catholic, whose children live in the Mars area school district. They don't have a dance team, and that they were trying to come forward and be like, was it something that our children could do? So it's definitely, I've had an outcry, and I've had such good positive feedback from it that I think it could be something that's successful in the district, and it's something that could be beneficial to the students. Do I think this year, because I know that somebody had brought to my attention, like with the cheer tryouts just happened, and what if kids go from one to the other? That is a great concern, but I don't think there's going to be a year where that doesn't happen. When you're starting a new program, a program is going to lose one to the other. But my goal ultimately isn't to take from them, but to figure it out and then all come together as one. I don't want it to be a separate entity from them. I want it to be something that we build together.
So you can't be on both, correct?
No, you
would
cannot
have
be on
to
both
choose
because you
to be on
actually
one.
do it at the same time.
That's what I was thinking.
Mhm. So you couldn't.
So your proposal is to, because we have a very long history of bringing programs into the school district fold.
Yeah.
And you're right, we do require typically 2 to 3 years of sustainability in terms of demonstrating students. Because sometimes you have just a group of kids who are interested and then they graduate and then the whole thing goes away kind of thing. So, so you're proposing this as a startup, which you have to start somewhere. So I think it's great, right? So you have to start somewhere. And so this would be a sort of a recognized school club that would report up through the, I'm reciting your proposal,
Yes.
or at least trying to anyway.
Yes,
That would report up through the athletic department.
yes.
And you would work with the cheer and the band.
So we don't really do, it's not a palms team.
Right, okay, so you were talking about halftime in the middle of the field. And you work
Yeah,
with the
so
band.
I would like to work with them as well for like, if they would let us do that, that would be awesome, but we wouldn't be performing with the band.
With the band, got it. Okay,
Yes.
so that's, okay. And then, I see here, so because it's a recognized volunteer position, I'm assuming want to be the coach.
Yes, ma'am.
So then you would have to have all of your clearances and go through that whole process.
Yes, so the district already has all of my clearances from working with.
Musical, good, yes.
Musical. Yeah, that's
I
already
remember that
done.
very well, actually.
And they actually have my resume as well as I sent it.
Yeah, we
in
got
the
it, that's great.
email.
And
Okay,
would
yes.
you be the only coach, or would there be other?
So what my goal would be, the way that I set it up, now Seneca, when I did Seneca, it became a sport instantly. So it was a paid position at the very beginning.
Right.
They're also a larger district, and I understand that.
Right.
So what I did there was I had myself and an assistant coach, and then I had a parent volunteer. That parent volunteer, whether I was sick, I couldn't be there or something like that, that parent volunteer had their clearances through the school district and was allowed to be there for a practice or for a game if I couldn't attend.
Okay.
That would be my goal. An assistant coach right now would be great, but it would be hard to tell somebody like, hey, this is a volunteer position.
Okay.
And to put those hours and time in. So that is something down the road I would love, but right now I think it'd be hard. I would definitely want work 2 parent volunteers that would be approved by the district that could come in and help me at times that I couldn't be
That's
there.
fair. That's fair. So then my next question, so it says, I'm just looking at your
Yes.
paper, right? So, I see a user fee of $250. So talk to me about that.
Okay, so user fee of $250, that would help us cover the cost of whatever we're gonna wear. And the speaker that we would purchase for that. I don't know how your clubs start up here. That's how it was there. That was their user fee that was for anything that whether you played a sport or you did a club, it was $250. That covered health costs of, any type of training, any type of people that came in, stuff like that. We also did fundraising, but that was our base level pricing. So if the girls need, obviously, a uniform to wear on
Sure. No, totally.
for the games,
It would
that
have to
help
have, it would have to.
It's not,
on it.
yeah,
I
exactly.
totally get that.
So it would not, for the speaker, it was, things like that. Now, whether parent funding would have to come in, absolutely. That wouldn't be enough to cover the
So now let me,
yes.
this isn't a question for you, this is a
Okay.
question for administration.
Okay.
So, because I'm all in, okay, I'm not asking questions to be critical. I'm
No, that's
just
fine,
trying to
please.
figure-
I don't
just
mind
trying
at
to
all.
Work through the mechanics
Yes,
of it,
please.
okay? So, as a recognized volunteer club.
I don't know what you guys call it.
Whatever, yeah. she would obviously go through the clearance process, blah, 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 but the team would be recognized. You guys would sort of figure that whole thing out. You made it sound really simple. I'm not quite sure it's gonna be quite that simple, but we're gonna go with that. But you don't have a booster group.
We don't, but like I said, I talked to them, they are willing to take us on even as a club.
But so as we would not require the girls to pay the participation fee, I would assume, we're not expending
It's
any
just a
money.
club.
So yes, it's just a club. So right. So then if there's costs associated, would they be paying Jamie or would they be paying the school district? I mean, how does that work?
Aren't they gonna use a facility? So that we just talk about the facility.
It'd be class
Fees?
A.
Maybe eight.
It'd be an A.
Yeah, I would
It'd be class A, it'd be zero.
No, I know, but she's saying that they need a uniform and somebody has to pay for it. So there's $250
I
gonna
would
be
think
charged.
that it would go through that booster organization.
Yeah.
That's, it would have to, that's what I'm saying, it needs a mechanism.
You need an
in order
overarching
to
organization.
pay.
Yeah.
Right, because I don't think it's in your best interest or the school district's best interest for people to be writing checks to you.
Oh,
I don't think that would be
absolutely not. I
bad.
completely agree with that.
That would be bad. So I'm just thinking of the mechanics of how that would work.
Through the boosters, like you said.
Yeah, it would be.
You would need some sort of mechanism.
And that $250 would help us start that booster,
Yeah.
because I don't want to tap into the cheerleading program. It's not fair.
Well, no.
They have
I'm
an
sure
they have
they
an
do.
up and running program, they have money saved. I don't want to touch that. The only thing that's nice about it is if we umbrella underneath them, we don't have to up and start an entire new booster program, which has to go through that entire
They
process.
probably need to change their bylaws a little
They
bit.
did, yeah. They
But
have
that's
a lawyer.
okay. I was just,
Yes.
it's, I'm just sort of thinking through that
Absolutely.
because we don't want you taking
I don't
checks and
understand
we don't want to necessarily accept them either. So that would be bad. Okay. And then let me just ask this. So this is just generally, does a volunteer club, like a startup club, we had volleyball started, we had lacrosse, everybody started this way. They all came to a meeting just like this and started somewhere. Are they eligible for drug tests?
Yes.
Okay, so,
Yeah.
so they would be, because they are recognized by the school district and they would. so
If
they would
you
go
as a
through that
district
whole-
are recognizing them as a club and they're calling themselves us, yes.
Okay, just sort of thinking, just wondering about that. Participation and clearance, okay. And then, we talked about, it's time to re-up the maximum minimums for our teams. So probably what you're, assuming this goes forward.
Yeah, if this goes forward, like I said, it's just really hard because I don't want, if it's something that turns out to be great and larger than it is, I don't want to turn away 30 students from something that.
Yeah, but there's only gonna be one of you.
There's only one. Yes, there is, but at the same time, I will say, like, when I personally teach dance on the outside of this, I would say I have groups that range up to about 100 kids. So at the school district level.
Yeah.
I don't think so much.
Okay, no. So, but I will say this, I want a team of 60 kids? I don't. Would I take a team of 30, 29 kids? I would. I probably wouldn't go over 30 kids.
I think that's.
Yeah. No, I just don't want to, but if I only got 15 kids, then I only got 15 kids.
Right, well.
So I don't want to say, just because I did hit 29 kids, I
No,
don't
no,
want
no,
to do
no.
it.
Typically, it's a maximum and a minimum.
Perfect. So I would probably
think-
say 9 and 29 would probably be my minimum and my maximum. How's that?
All right, thank you. Those are my questions.
Yeah, no problem.
I just have a quick one, and this is probably already known, but me being new, what about when a startup like this, the club comes in and they're using the school facilities and you have students involved? What's the insurance? Do you carry the insurance for the club? Would the booster carry the insurance? Does the school district carry the insurance? How does that work? We do that. Okay, so is there a class that we recoup from that booster group, or we just carry that insurance and we just umbrella it because we have it?
Just carry it.
Okay. All right.
Yes,
Very good.
go into the booster club, right? Yeah.
Okay.
The only thing that I would ask too is, since it's going to be recognized as a club for our ninth graders coming in, if this happens, a lot of collegiate schools over the past 5 years have started giving full scholarships to dance team members, UK being one, WVU being another one. So these kids, not like a lot of cheerleaders go and they have full scholarships, rides to go to their colleges. Over the past 5 years, I would say the increase has been 7% from what I've researched in collegiate levels. So I just want to make sure that it is recognized as a school. So if a child from 9 through 12 follows this the whole way through and they want to go collegiately, we're giving kids not only a high school opportunity to use the thing, but this could carry them into college level to do dance teams in college that are competitive or give them full funding scholarships for now. So that's
That's a
it.
little fun fact.
Yes.
I actually was on my college team.
Oh, were you? That's amazing.
And I had blank. How about that?
Wait a minute, that was it a good experience or not?
I also was about that and I can prove it.
I love it.
Transportation, you're just gonna do home games, do you think? or-
Yeah, so that I get things that are up in the air that I don't know how your district works. Would I love for it to be for football home and away? Absolutely. Do I understand if it can't be? Absolutely. Again, things that like I'm open to the district saying like you can or can't do. And I'm not gonna say just because you won't let us go to an away game, I'm not gonna do it anymore. I think the more exposure for the kids, the more things that kids can be involved in where they're not on the streets, very different. So I think that if I can do it in some way, shape or form, that would be awesome. If I can't, I completely understand and respect that.
That's where our participation fee comes in,
Right.
right, John? So that would be a different discussion if they were to be on the transportation.
But as a club, yeah, as a club, we would.
Okay.
Any other board members?
She answered most of my questions. Yeah, very well done.
Do we want to see this on our agenda next week on the 10th, right?
That would give you ample time to try out.
Yeah.
So we'll have a line item next week on the agenda for the clubs of the dance.
Okay. All right.
If everybody responds, you should probably get your clearances in.
Now, do my clearances roll over? Or I already have them here from the musical this
You
year.
probably need them to be re-upped under this.
So it's
What would your club
Yeah,
actually
they're
be
good for
named?
5 years.
For the
No, I
motion?
know.
Just to cover every activity.
Yeah. just
Large
like-
dance chamber right now, yeah.
It's like-
Okay.
She has to be approved as the volunteer coach.
Yeah,
and
she
that
would,
would
but
assume
the
that,
clearances are gonna
Would
run
it
their own
be,
course.
would it be high school dance?
So as of right now, to start off, I would do 9 through 11, which would be varsity. However, like I said, if I had a big picture, I would love to separate them. Just so that everybody had a fair shot at it, but for right now, 9 to 11, until I see what the amount of students I have coming in. I'm sorry, 9 through 12, 9 through 12, I'm sorry, my apologies. 9 through 12, it's on there.
So what happened?
Yeah.
Yeah, she wouldn't need gym time. You would practice out in the lobby you talked about, right?
Yeah, so I did talk and we said, obviously I would love gym time, but I completely respect that it's.
We would get you
so
gym
taken.
time when we could, but.
Yeah, absolutely. But I have no problem doing it outside or, in the spot that I used to choreograph the musical, there was a ton of kids. And we were able to be successful in that area, in that small space that we had. So I'm definitely open to holidays and whatever to make it useful for the children.
All right, so we'll have it on the agenda for next
Okay.
week. Thank you for the presentation. So moving on to board reports. Sally, yeah, Mr. Sally.
We had our quarterly municipality meeting on May 20th. And there, we were informed that the agreement has been signed between PennDOT and Adams Township. So the next step will be to move forward with bidding out of phase 1 of the project. So construction on that will start in fall of 2021 or spring of 2022. One of the biggest priorities for them and for us as far as the school district bring forward to everybody here is they're going to try to connect the school district to a part of the Adams Park via trails. So that's something they're trying to work on. It's difficult, but that is a priority, and that is something that would be exciting to have that happen. We as a school district are also trying to work with them to see if we can get that accomplished. There was construction taking place on Adams Community Park, which some people are probably aware of. They're putting in 4 pickleball courts this year, and the township applied for a grant in the spring for a splash pad project there, which would be really nice for the kids. Mallory Fire Department reported that they are in the planning stages of possibly putting an addition onto the firehouse. They have live-in firemen there, which has increased their response times to emergencies. So they're looking to provide more space. There was discussion regarding expanding the library, which most of you are probably aware to revamp the library, but also to include the Discovery Center. So they're looking at locations in downtown Mars there, possibly the building that's there and adding another building behind, and there's another location they were talking about in downtown Mars. So that's still up in the air, but they're looking into all of that. It was mentioned that part of that RCAP grant that was brought in with the NASA project to bring the Discovery Center would also include changes to the entrance to the downtown area to make it more inviting. And in that, there would be a revitalization to the storefronts as well, which is exciting. I for one didn't know that. So that would be really, it's separate from the funding that's going to go into the Discovery Center. So it's really exciting. Some exciting opportunities for Mars, for all of us. So the next meeting that we have is scheduled for Thursday, August 19th.
Thank you, Sally.
Yep.
A lot of great information. Kevin, Foundation.
Yeah, Mars Planet Foundation met here in the boardroom on May 19th, 2021. And to thank everyone who supported the foundation through our walk around Mars. We raised over $36,000 and we met our goal of walking around the circumference of Mars. Megan actually has an update for our scholarships that she would like to present.
All the scholarships have been chosen. The high school is aware of who's getting each one. They should be told within the next week or two. Unfortunately, due to COVID restrictions, they weren't able to do the academic banquet how we've previously done it. So the scholarship videos were done again, just like last year. So I just want to say thank you to everyone who's involved in the process of applying and choosing recipients, like something super fun that we get to do on the Planet Foundation is give kids money for college. And if you're interested in doing a scholarship, it's a great way to honor a loved one. You can reach us on marsplanetfoundation.org and start one.
Thanks, Megan. We're also looking to sponsor some ice cream trucks over the summer, so please stay tuned for that. And we will meet again on June 15th. I'd like to thank you for your support over the past year and look forward to your next school year.
Thank you, Kevin. Moving on the agenda to Student Council. Is anyone from Student Council available? Is anyone maybe on Zoom from Student Council? No way, John? All right. Maybe next month or next week we'll catch them. Move on to public comment. Go open the public comment. We spend the next 30 minutes on public comment, and we give 3 minutes per public comment. Typically, it's on agenda items only. We were really short on our discussion about policy 707. So if you'd like to speak about that, you can also do that. The way we're going to do this via, because we have live people and then we have Zoom people. So I'm going to call on the people that are live and take the effort to be here first. And then if we still have a lot of time, then we will switch over to Zoom. So is anyone here in the room to speak? Okay, just state your name and address and you'll have 3 minutes.
My name is Megan Sinicki. I live 301 Village Drive in Adams. I just wanted to support what Jamie wanted to start for the dance team. I have 2 daughters at high school. Actually, one's graduating on Thursday, and the other one's a freshman. And extremely excited that they might get, at least the younger one will get a chance to be on the dance team. They danced with Jamie and Tina for a while, and just to have the opportunity to be able to use their talent and support their school with what they love doing is really going to be great. So I hope that it's something that we can work out here. And even my older daughter, as Jamie alluded to, like the collegiate dance teams, she was fortunate enough to be trained by Jamie and Tina, and it gets to continue dancing now at college. And most of the girls on that team have come from a school dance team. So I think it would be something great that we could offer for our students. And I'm just really thankful that we have someone willing to give their time to the kids. And I know you'll have a lot of parent support for her and for this program. And also one other quick thing, I know in the past the band has maybe, I don't know exactly what happened, but maybe it just wasn't something that would work out with the band. But I saw something different with COVID this year, where at one point it was just cheerleaders and band there, and the support that they gave to each other when there were no spectators. A couple of those varsity games, they really bonded, and I just think it's an opportunity for the kids to have more bonding through another sport. So I'm hoping maybe one of the positive changes of COVID is we can all kind of work together on it. Thanks.
Great, thank you. Does anyone else in the room wish to have a public comment? Go ahead in the back.
I signed up, I guess.
I
never sign up. But it's Julia Knitsky, 2006 Maxwell Lane, Mars. I was going to speak on the agenda item, which was the budget. I know I sent everybody an email and it had a lot of questions on there that I think you should consider before voting on the budget. And I appreciate your time looking at all that. But I had a quick question. I was told by Dr. Gross responded and said there was going to be a presentation next week. Yes. So thank you on that one regarding the ESSER funds. I was just wondering, if Debbie could answer, what do we budget? Do we budget for the cyber charter schools? I know that was not the debt, but the bill was higher because of COVID, this year, but is that a line item that's usually like a school district would?
Oh, yeah, budget for tuition.
Budget for tuition.
For all charter schools.
Okay,
Yes.
So-
it's increased in the budget for next year.
it's increasing the budget for next year.
In anticipation of based on the students. We don't know whether students are going to be returning or, because we have a lot of students leaving this year and go to cyber, outside
Right.
cyber. So we're not sure how many will be coming back. We're hopeful that we get a lot of them to come back. And the more
Right.
students, and that, well, we can, that'll free up that money. To help out the budget.
Okay, and I know you're gonna give a presentation on this ESSER funds.
Yes, Jill's going to talk about this.
Oh, yeah, Jill. So I just wanted to like kind of ask, one of my questions was how are we gonna ensure we are not supplanting with that, with the ESSER funds coming in? It's illegal to use grant funds, federal funding to pay for ongoing expenses, things that should be budgeted normally, like charter school, line items that normally districts budget for. The ESSER overview, I'm just gonna put this out there. 5% of the ESSER funds are implementation of evidence-based interventions aimed specifically addressing learning loss, summer enrichment, extended day. 1% of the ESSER's allocation for evidence-based summer enrichment programs, 1% of ESSER allocation for evidence-based comprehensive after-school programs. But the biggest thing is 20% of the funds. I'm sorry, I have so many things. Like I've done a lot of research on this and it's very confusing. Reserve at least 20% of the funds to address learning loss through implementation of evidence-based interventions, ensure that those interventions respond to students' social, emotional, and academic needs, address the disappropriate impact of COVID-19 on underrepresented student subgroups. Major subgroup of this, and the only, I'm not sure if you know this, but the only federal right to education in space. That's, I mean, and can I have just like 30 more seconds because she answered some questions in between there. The only federal right to education in space through IDEA is the only, students with disabilities are the only educational rights at that level, at the federal level. So when you have federal funds coming in, I just wanted to know how we were going to at least prove that 20%, which is about $220,000, are going to go specifically to the disabled students per district. That's what I wanted to see. And I asked for those line items, and I wasn't able to get those. So I apologize if you guys get those and I don't see them.
We have worked on that. We have that planned out, and when the next week, Jill presents that.
Perfect. Thank you.
That's a quick 30 seconds.
Hey, I waited a long time to come here.
Thank you. Anyone else in the room wish to have public comment? Anyone else in the room? If not, we'll move to Zoom. Does anyone on Zoom wish to have a public comment at this point?
Can you hear me?
State your name and your address, and you'll have 3 minutes.
Greg Mason, 206 Cups Drive, Valencia, PA, 16059. By the way, is it board policy to give in-person attendees preference when it comes to public comment times? I would have known that. I would have showed up because I got skipped over last meeting. So it'd be great also if I could get like 5 minutes instead of 3 because I had multiple comments, I guess. Is that a possibility?
I just wasn't my personal preference because people showed up. I mean, it's 3 minutes. So go ahead.
I'm sorry. I didn't hear the very last thing you said.
I'll restart your 3 minutes and you'll have the full 3 minutes. That's
all right. Thank you. I'm happy to see the board take the community field use issue so seriously and so swiftly. It's long overdue and shows what can occur when board members have an interest in listening and helping community members. Just to summarize, by my rough calculations from what I gathered from the past couple meetings, there's an $80,000 baseball fee, which equated to costing each baseball player an additional $160 a season to continue playing, which is really high. And remember, these are the future of very successful sports teams. I also enjoyed how tonight many board members talked about how not all students make use of these fields, which is true. Many residents have brought up the fee that has been levied against 100% of our Mars area students for years. These students are the current and future representatives of our community. And these full fees total approximately $250,000. And last I saw budgeted were $300,000 for next school year. This breaks down to $227 per high school student, since they are the ones who have the burden of these fees. What are these fees I speak of? These are the fees I brought up at numerous meetings to pretty much be dismissed with no further discourse or discussion. I talked about fee caps. I've talked about ways to go around this and how this impacts students who are just above the free and reduced lunch guidelines. These are the fees that our students have to pay to take art classes, tech ed courses, park your car, to use an electronic device in this year where we are on again, off again, which I would call vital to learning. I'm glad that it was mentioned numerous times that the board does not wish to incur any type of profit from these fees in terms of the sports, but how does the district not profit if it charges $100 per year for 4 years, which totals $400 for a device that costs in the ballpark of $250 to $300? You guys care to answer that? All right. So when does the board plan on addressing these fees? The technology fee, the art tech ed fees? Is there a plan? Do we need to come in and make a presentation? Has this been discussed? Dr. Gross or anybody in the board?
There's been no recent discussion on any changes to fees. Certainly.
Okay, and again, I'm just going to remind all of you, 100% of our students pay these fees. Lastly, since there's a one-time windfall from the American Recovery Plan funds that will be used, as you guys stated on your budget, for purchasing technology devices, does this mean that the district is finally scrapping the technology fee of $100 per student and becoming a true one-to-one district to help the education quality K through 12, so all students can have the same devices and experience in and out of the classroom? Is that a possibility?
I'm not sure I understand the statement.
Question was, could you clarify the statement?
Yeah, I mean, you're using American Recovery Plan funds to purchase new technology devices, but then you're still going to charge students for these devices. So does that mean you're no longer to get charged as students for the devices then?
Hasn't been discussed.
All right, just if I could summarize here in 20 seconds or whatever. I have a lot more. I hope I have some more time to talk more about the budget. I hope we have a spirited discussion about these fees and what it means to our community and our students, as we have had for the sports teams. And I appreciate it. I think we should always have discussions like this. I'd implore all of you to consider what I said tonight. Thank you.
Thank you.
If I could just comment in response to that, I mean, we have heard from families, especially those who have multiple children, that the lack of a fee cap can be a burden to them. And I think that's certainly something we can have a discussion about at some point. I've often been told by other board members that the reason the fees are in place is so the taxes aren't raised in order to pay for some of these types of things. Field usage, like Anthony was trying to allude to earlier. I think that's a personal conversation that each of us are going to have with ourselves, and then have community input of, would you like to see your taxes raised 0.5 mils in order to do away with some of these fees, or would you rather pay these fees while your kids are in school? But I think that's the toss up to it, is that I've often been told by board members that have sat here is, hey, either you pay these fees now or you pay your taxes the next time. I just feel like it's worth mentioning that. But I think it is worth the conversation of a fee cap for families, especially who have multiple children and are in turn incurring $1,000, $2,000 a year.
Just a point of clarification, and I'm truly asking just to make sure I'm understanding. The art fees and the tech ed fees, my understanding of those fees are fees for consumables for an elective course. So if you choose to take an art class or a tech ed class where you're going to build or create something and take it home. So if you build a chair and you take your chair home, then the fee would go for the materials to produce whatever it is you're producing. So it is not a fee that applies to everybody. It's a fee that would apply to those students who choose to take that elective course. And then there is I don't know what the fees are, but I don't, $40 for the materials and supplies to take that project home with you. Those are the only art and tech ed fees that I am aware of. I'm not sure this sort of blanket universal comment was accurate. Maybe I misunderstood.
And not all students drive to school, you know, and there are seats on buses for those students. So, you know, that was another blanket statement that, you know, every child pays a parking fee, but that's impossible. We don't have that many spaces.
I think the idea was that if your child uses the technology, there's fee. If your child does a club sport activity,
I understood.
You know, I think that's.
I understood what was considered that. I just disagree with some of the
And
statements.
I guess I'll say the same thing I said earlier today, and again, I'm not advocating one or the other. Make fees zero, make fees $6,000 a student, whatever it is.
Well, Anthony,
There is
slow down.
no free, and there really is no profit. The school district does not profit. The school district collects tax money from you, us, and that money gets spent back on our students for programs. So if it isn't collected in a fee, then it's collected through taxes. The money comes from somewhere. There's no safe in the basement that we take money from. Every dollar that comes in goes back out to the students in one form or another. So, and I'm not advocating one's the better way or another. There's all great discussions. There should be a fee cap, but just let's all be real about we're all spending our own money. It's all collective and it is all taxpayer money. There's not an extra fund to pull from.
And just because it's worth noting, sort of another little fun fact, is that, and I'm rounding, but only 30% of the taxpayers in this district have children in school. There's 70. So when we say taxpayers, it's not just the parents in the school district who are paying the taxes. It is the entire, you know, residential and commercial. Right. So and our district, because of the formulas, whenever there's a formula, that means bad things because we're always on the short end of every formula. We are very locally funded. We get very little state and federal aid comparatively. So when we are talking about spending dollars, we are literally talking about spending your dollars and your neighbors' dollars, whether you have children actually benefiting from this program live today or not. You may be somebody who's moved in who has young families and the kids are coming up, or maybe you're somebody who has kids who are moving off to college or a senior citizen. Everybody pays, and that's how these are funded. And so whether you're talking about a fee for a chair that you're going to build in tech ed that you're going to take home and use, whether you're talking about a bus fee or even a Class C group in your child wanting to play youth wrestling or participate in youth wrestling, the point of those fees would be that the people who are actually using the services, if you will, are the ones who are actually paying the fees. You can reduce everything, and I say free, and I don't mean to, you know, just for general purpose. You can make it, take all the fees away, make everything free, everybody come, everybody. But at the end of the day, what that will mean is that we're going to be asking everybody to pay as opposed to the people for those specific things that are not necessarily directly for the facilities anyway. You know, youth baseball or youth wrestling is not necessarily part of our mission. That, you know, we would ask those people to pay a nominal fee to help cover the cost. So it is a great discussion. It is the chicken egg, and it goes on forever and ever. But that is the premise. That is the premise that we've operated on for many years. Like it or not, I respect every point of view. But to suggest that every fee is charged to every student in every circumstance, that actually is not an accurate statement. That is not true.
I think there's a happy compromise here, and the happy medium is fee, no fee, fee cap, because there are families that are either lower middle.
I think that conversation has merit. We just have to remember that when we talk to these folks here today are the ones who have students in the district. There's 100% of the people who pay taxes, only 30% of them actually have students here. So of course they're more engaged and they're sort of paying attention but we have to respect that those of us sitting here at this table, we were elected to represent 100%. And we do try to balance that. It's not that we don't care. I know that's a popular narrative, but we actually care an awful lot. We wouldn't sit here and spend our time and, you know, gray hair and, you know, et cetera. We care actually very much, but we also understand that it is, we have to find the balance between a quality, well-rounded educational program and using every taxpayer's dollar through. And that's the balance. And we're not, you know, and that's why we have these conversations.
Let's move on with public comment. Does anyone else wish to have public comment at this time?
Greg, there's one.
Hi there. My name's Kristen Lutzik, 114 Twinbrook Road, Valencia, PA 16059. And I just, I was listening, but I just did want to respond to this last group of comments. Taking an art class in a high school level isn't the same as taking an extracurricular activity. I realize that it is an elective, yes, but it is part of the curriculum of the school district. And for students who might choose to go into a field that does require some artistic basis and form, you know, if you aren't able to afford the fees for a class that in pretty much every district that I have been in, and my husband teaches, my sister teaches, my brother-in-law teaches, I have friends that are in multiple districts across Western PA, charging fees for classes that are part of the curriculum. I just don't want to see that equated along the same lines as, oh, well, I had to pay because I joined the sports team, because I had to do this and that. That's something outside of school. And technology ed is also something part of school. Just because it's an elective, I feel like it's being dismissed. And it is doing a disservice to the students that might choose not to take an art or technology course because they can't afford it. So I just didn't want that point to go unnoticed. Thank you.
Thank you. So anyone else wish to have public comment at this point? Is that great, Mr. Mason? Anyone wish to have public comment that hasn't spoken already? So we'll take Greg again, and there will be no other public comment after his 3 minutes is up. So go ahead.
If you want to do, someone does raise their hand.
Yeah, if somebody's ahead, because once Greg goes, there will be nobody after him. Yeah, that's what I said.
James, you can unmute.
You'd have to unmute yourself, James.
Sorry about that. Can you hear me now?
Yeah.
Perfect.
This is James Insko, 1828 Liberty Way, Valencia, Pennsylvania. A little bit more of Greg Mason's ramblings before we conclude meeting, but I did want to thank the board, and I've sent some emails to my children's teachers, thanking the teachers also, but the administrators and the board members deserve a huge thanks for the courage they displayed last year, and in making what at the time was a very difficult, but in hindsight, perfectly sound decision to make 5-day in-person education available to our students. And I think my kids are much better off for that courage you guys showed, and I very much appreciate it. That's it.
Thank you. Anyone else besides Mr. Mason? Okay, so Mr. Mason, you can go ahead.
Can you guys hear me?
Yes.
I just want to also make sure comments are personally directed, as James just did. It is the duty of the board president to redirect them, correct?
I was waiting for your address. I didn't hear the question. What was that?
It says the presiding officer may interrupt or terminate a participant's statement when the statement is personally directed, abusive, obscene, or irrelevant as part of your board policy. What Mr. Insko did there, did that fall under any of those?
I guess I didn't catch any of these.
I don't think ramblings is a term of endearment. And I'm sorry I did some research, James, if you're listening.
Okay. I'm not going to get involved
moving
with
on.
public members.
I just want to make sure the board, because they kind of, I don't know if the correct term is used, chair,
in no way, shape, or form did I say every student takes an art class, a tech ed course, drives to school. Or technically, not every student pays the district fee, but they then have to buy their own piece of technology to bring it into school. So it seemed like a few board members focused on that. That's not what I was implying at all. I just want to see some more discussion about either capping these fees or actually taking a look at them as we did for sports, which I think is important. That's it. So I was kind of disheartened by seeing where that conversation went afterwards. Now, also, it's a hard time seeing who's speaking at the board. By the way, I believe it was Dale who said something about 70% of the residents do not have children in the district. And that's true. I've heard that for years from a lot of board members. You know, in this logic, let me just put it this way. There are roads in the township I live in that I never drive on, but I pay for. Who is it for me to say that I shouldn't, if I don't use it, I shouldn't have to do my civic duty and be a true patriot and pay taxes that benefit not only myself maybe, but also people that I don't know who use those services. I hope we can have some more sense of civic duty in that regard. Lastly, moving on to the actual budget, which I was trying to get to. Dr. Gross, is this the budget that you fought for, that you believe gives your staff and you the tools you need to make Mars Area School District the best it can be?
Absolutely, it was a collaborative effort. And having to build a budget under our current situation is never easy. I think the team did a great job in figuring it all out.
All right, so do we have a curriculum instructor next year, or are the curriculum coaches coming back next school year?
We do have a plan for curriculum renewal this year. We intentionally stayed away from that, Greg, because of COVID.
Yeah, and I know the history. I'm saying in this year's budget, it wasn't mentioned in the budget summary that you're going to be filling a curriculum instructor position. So you are filling that?
No, there is not an actual curriculum position. However, the curriculum process will proceed.
But I'm sorry, this process, is this buying textbooks?
No, textbooks is the third level of any good curriculum and cycle. Textbooks do not drive curriculum. The first step is actually creating the curriculum maps. We have a plan for. The second is common assessments, and the last piece is the materials.
Thank you. And the last thing, because I saw in the summary that we purchased new social studies curriculum for grades 6 through 12. Maybe there's a typo. I think you meant to say textbooks. And I just hope that the board has some more long-sightedness in terms of thinking about MTSS and other programs that probably can use some more improvement. I don't know if that involves staffing or not, but thank you very much, Dr. Gross. Appreciate it.
You're welcome. And as far as MTSS, yeah, that's one of our major focus areas next year, to beef that program up.
So that'll conclude. Thank you, Mr. Mason. That concludes the public comment at this point. We'll have it again after we get through the agenda and the addendum. Next week we'll be approving the minutes. Tonight we're going to approve on addendum number 1 under personnel number 1. Have a first and a second on that.
Oh, what are we doing, personnel?
Yeah, personnel on the addendum number 1 and number 1.
Just number 1.
Just number 1, because I'm going to do a roll call.
Christine, so need a second.
So I have a first and a second. Any board discussion, comments? May I have a roll call vote, please?
One more layer.
Sorry about that. No, you're fine.
You're
Ms.
good.
Ferguson?
Yes.
Mr. Hagan?
Yes.
Mr. Kennedy?
No.
Ms. Lenz? Mr. Malberger? Ms. Valencia? Yes. Ms. Wick? Yes. Mr. Pettis?
Yes.
Ms. Dorsch? Yes. So that is 7 yes, 1 absent, or 2 absent.
2 absent.
Just went to grab a drink of water.
Yeah.
We just check back with her.
There was
Okay,
a-
second. Yeah,
there was
she'll be
a-
right back.
There was a no. Was it
Yeah, I
no?
voted
Yeah,
no.
1 no. So, sorry, 1 no.
The solicitor says we're going to wait till they can come back. So she can. We pause or do we come back to it? We'll come back to it. Okay.
Here she comes. She's right now. We're doing a roll call vote, Megan, on personnel number 1.
Go and get a drink, I'm aware.
Just say yes or no.
Yeah.
Okay, so we're good. So that's 7 yes, 1 no, and 1 absent.
Oh, yes. Okay, perfect. So on addendum number 1, under personnel number 2 through 7, can I have a first and second?
Steve, so moved.
Kevin, second.
Board discussion, comments? Seeing none, all in favor, aye.
Aye.
Opposed, nay. That passes. That takes care of our personnel. And then under finances, on the main agenda, we're going to go to number 9. So on the main agenda, under finance, number 9, it's the blue chip. Have a first and a second?
Kevin, so moved.
Anthony, seconds.
Board discussion, comments?
This is Megan. We've heard from the teachers that they want to keep the people in the schools that are currently working and that it's been going flawlessly. We are not shying away from the fact that there's been technology issues here. The reason that I'm personally voting yes to this is because we've heard from teachers and administrators that these are the people that they want to continue. I'm hopeful that this contract is able to move us forward to doing something in-house or a combination of such, that it continues what our kids have had that have gotten them through these really difficult times.
Any other board members? Dr. Gross, did you want? Yep. All right. So roll call, please.
Mr. Hagan,
Yes.
Mr. Kennedy,
Yes.
Ms. Lentz,
Yes.
Mr. Marburger, Ms. Valenta,
Yes.
Ms. Wick,
Yes.
Mr. Pettis,
Yes.
Ms. Dorsch,
Yes.
Ms. Ferguson,
Yes.
that's 8 yes, 1 absent.
And the rest of the finance, the next 24 we'll vote on next week. Programs will be next week. Policies. So we are going to do what our policy 707.
We'll make the revisions, try to capture the conversation and get it back out for you to review and try to get it approved for a 30-day review.
So the board's going to see the revised between now and the next meeting, and then we'll vote next meeting on whether we post it for the 30 days.
Yes.
And we're
Is the
gonna
board-
do the maximum.
What's that?
And the maximum and minimums for.
The maximum minimum for athletics.
So, because the.
I'll cover that under. Is the board good with that for next week?
Yes.
Voting rounds, none others.
29.
Hey, just a question. None of the, all of these, we have so many agreements and contracts and stuff here. And none of them say, pending approval by the solicitor, meaning that you've gotten through them all. That's really great, Mike. That's a really big change. So many pending approval from the
Right, here's
solicitor.
one we just got to change in today,
Okay,
but you'll get that updated. That's the Center for Community Resources contract, maybe one small change.
Pretty
Okay.
quick to get to that.
well, it's just, I just want to make sure that's happening, but B, I wasn't sure, we just were putting it on there if they're actually been already reviewed. That's terrific. Thank you very much.
Thanks, Dale.
Like moving forward, so next week on the agenda, the dance team will be on the agenda next week. It's not here now, so it'll be on here next week. It's coming up.
Just a comment, I'm really excited about the musical theater research too.
Yeah.
That's great.
Moving on the agenda, we're back to public comment.
Are you doing the other on the addendum?
Oh, I tell you that.
Okay, the Mars Boys Lacrosse is up. Oh, this is actually.
Probably just the addendum.
So just the addendum. So on addendum number 1, under others, number 1, I have a first and a second.
Megan, so moved.
Board discussion? Seeing none, all in favor, aye?
Aye.
Opposed, nay? Did I miss anything else?
No, that's it. Just wanted the addendum and the blue chip contract.
Okay, so we're back to public comment. We'll spend the next 30 minutes on public comment, which you'll have 3 minutes. If you've spoken already, you can wait till the end. and then I'll call you then. Is there anyone?
On your list?
Yeah, I was going to do the room first.
Did you have anyone on the list?
Oh, is there anyone? I guess I didn't even.
No, everyone.
Mr. Kennedy, I had my hand up that when you called on Greg again, can I just go last after everyone else has talked?
Okay, after even the Zoom.
Yeah.
Okay, yeah, I like to give everybody who hasn't had a
Chance,
chance to
right.
do it first and then after that.
Thanks.
So anyone in the room wish to give a public comment? Go just state your name and your address.
Amber Rush, 112 Justice Drive, Valencia, PA, 16059.
Thank you.
Looking at the posted preliminary budget, it's unclear if it covers enough staff to do the assessment stage in the beginning of the year at the primary center and then start Title I services to the identified struggling students before October 29th. As it is concerning that in 2019-20 school year, identified students went a full semester not receiving Title I instruction that they qualified to receive, in addition to the confirmed weeks of lack of services due to staff working on binders. In the budget, it is also unclear who was all being paid by the Title I funds. As the 2019-2020 school year, the time and effort sheets on paper show the weekly schedule of those being paid by Title I funds. But what happened weekly in the school doesn't match the submitted time and effort papers. The mismanagement of Title I funds affects the children and their futures. I'm asking the board to be brave and resilient when looking at the preliminary budget. You are all aware of the 12-hour reading camp that is coming up in the weeks very soon. But did any of you look into the disservice to the kids, the same children who sit on this board to make sure they're receiving what they need to meet their full potential? Does next year's budget cover the shortfalls of our Title I program? Has anyone asked hard questions like, what lesson plans did the parent use on a daily basis 3 times a day? And when you look at the time and effort and look at the lessons, then did you take a look at the 590 plus kids the same person provided skill inventory to? I know these are hard questions, but you guys need to look into it now. The board has shown the public that on sports topics, they are willing to work with the concerned parents. And this I am beyond grateful for. But where are the same meetings for the educated, informed parents on academic concerns? This is a true concern that we have service Title I children, and other sports people get to have a meeting, but I do not, and that's not fair. I asked the board to take the time to go line by line on the budget so that this upcoming year, we don't have teachers in the middle of the night worried about not having all the curriculum, or a reading specialist saying, however, with all the audit stuff, I don't even feel like I can speak about these kids. And she continues to say to administration, I'm truly not trying to get out of it, but I find myself in an uncomfortable situation. Let's make sure this budget has the staff that is needed to support the kids who weren't supported in the 2019-2020 school year, and the students that are experiencing learning loss due to the pandemic, that they're covered as well. We will never go from better to best if we don't understand the budget and what actually takes place in our schools. Thank you.
Thank you. Anyone else in the room wish to have public comment? Anyone else in the room? So we'll move on to the Zoom internet there. Is there anyone on Zoom that wishes to have public comment at this point that hasn't spoken already?
Hello, Heather Raybold, 604 Valencia Road, Mars. And I just wanted to say that I'm really happy to hear that Dr. Gross said that MTSS is going to be a focus on the future. I've spoken several times about my concern of MTSS in the district. But as we look at the tentative budget, I'm just really concerned how that could truly happen. So for a student requiring Tier 3 services, which this is in addition to the general ed curriculum, it requires teachers such as reading or math specialists. We know the district doesn't have math specialists, and I've said at the past 2 meetings, the reading specialists are not staffed after 4th grade. Shouldn't additional FTEs be added to this tentative budget? I do understand that they are being added as reading specialists at the primary level, and I'm very thankful for that, but we've never even considered behavioral MTSS at Mars. So I'm not really sure how that can be a focus, but yet it's not really supported in this budget process. Also, elected board members, you have to please keep in mind that for MTSS to work, win time must take place. And due to the lack of subs, win time was often canceled so that the reading specialist could then go cover for a classroom teacher so they could get their required planning, which is obviously very important. But I hope as we look at using ESSER funds appropriately, that we are strategically thinking about the sub issue that has not been a problem just as a result of COVID, but continues to be a problem in the district. So if MTSS is a focus, we really need to be thinking about how we can ensure that win time happens for our students that require those tier 3 services. So I want to give a shout out to all of the teachers. It's been a really hard year. It's been a wonderful year. I also want to say thank you to Mr. Lape. He has been the principal that has jumped in to cover PE classes and dismissal and things that an instructional leader shouldn't have to do, but hopefully moving forward that we can be more proactive with our substitute shortfall. Thank you for your time.
Thank you. Anyone else on Zoom wish to have a public comment at this point? No. Anyone else on Zoom who wishes to have public comment? So we'll go back to Ms. Kaminsky. She spoke earlier. She has the last one for the night. Go ahead.
Okay, Julia Kaminsky. Oh, 2006 Maxwell Lane. Mars. So the support staff still do not have a contract. We need 16 paraprofessionals in our district. I really, really fear, and I put this in the email, that children will not be able to have the requirements met in their IEPs because just how short staffed we are. The $13 an hour is completely atrocious. Like, I think to attract quality, even parents who have their degrees, upping that a little bit, maybe give some benefit. I'm not sure what's all involved. I'll apply for the heck of it. But that we really got to get the support contract going. But that wasn't what I was going to say. That was added on, but that's okay. I had to say it. Quick question for Ms. Ferguson. You said that 70% do live here, pay taxes here, but don't have their children come here. Did we ever do a survey of how many people in our district actually, now it's a good time. If you drive around all our neighborhoods of our $1 million homes, you'll see proud graduate of North Catholic, proud graduate of North Catholic. How many people send their kids here, pay taxes in our district, but send their kids to another school? Do we have like a number on that? And what is the reason why they go to that other district? Is it because they have more free, they pay tuition. Our area is hard because they pay tuition to go to these schools for whatever reason they choose. But I wonder really what the survey is, what we're missing here to have those families that pay taxes here, have to send their kids here, why they choose private schools. I would love to know that, or if there's a survey, does anyone ever do that?
That's an interesting idea. I'm not aware of administration doing it.
We have.
Right, like you wonder what the attraction is.
As I've said this
You wanna knock
before,
on the door.
I believe in school choice and I respect the
Right.
parents' decision to make a decision that's best for their child.
Right.
So, it might be interesting data just to understand, just
follow it.
as we've done surveys in terms of our cyber students
Right.
and what their thinking is in terms of coming back to brick and mortar or not.
Right.
We certainly have done that, but in terms of sort of
Keeping our people here.
Right,
At our school, why?
Yeah.
So I just thought that was interesting clutter data that maybe we can start gathering. And then I really wanted to just say, in the public trying to look at this budget, it was like 16 pages long, I think. The lay person out there would have to dig more, and surrounding school districts in Butler County and also in Allegheny County, comparable to us, on the same caliber as us, that we play at football games. Their budgets preliminary are like 60 pages long. They have projections out 7 years. I just feel like we can demand more. If you guys represent everybody in the district, I think we should demand more and try to look at that. And On that note, I just wanted to say a quote from John Adams, "The whole people must take upon themselves the education of the whole people and must be willing to bear the expenses of it. There should not be a district of 1 mile square without a school in it, not funded by a charitable individual, but maintained at the expense of the people themselves." That was true then, and it is now. 70% of those families that don't have kids that come here, my special ed department kid that doesn't have an increase in their budget for this year, as far as like significant for the 20%, you know, it's maintenance of effort, but not really. I really feel like, I don't think that people, I'm going to throw this out there, are going to be upset if you increase taxes and take the extra funds and use them appropriately. Because we really got to collaboratively educate all of our people. And just please consider that. Thank you.
Thank you.
I love the quote. And I would like to just simply add on this, because I believe this in my heart. Whatever part of that fraction you belong to.
Right.
I truly believe that 100% of our citizenry values quality public education. I believe that wholeheartedly. So it is just a matter of, and if it came through to suggest that the 70% didn't care, that is not at all what I believe. I truly believe in this district with highly educated families and our, if you just look at what our graduates have done, we should be really, really proud. And there's always room to grow. But I believe 100% of our citizenry values quality public education, and they value education, and they're going to make the best choice for their students. That's fine. It's just always a matter of the balance. It isn't all of this and none of that, a little of this and a little of that. We've got to keep in mind that it's 100% are paying for the 30. And listen, some people pay for my kids when they went through, and I'm going to keep paying for others. We pass it forward. We look back. You get it. It's just part of what we do. It's part of what we do. But you do need to respect the 100% that you're making, and I know you do, and I respect that. And that quote was absolutely perfect. But and so tag onto that, I wanted to clarify that it's not that I want to suggest that anybody doesn't care or value what we do here. We are the capstone of this community. We're smack dab in the center, and everybody who is here, who is part of it, who's coming to us or have gone and moved on, are incredibly proud to be a Fighting Planet. We just would like to keep it that way, right?
So I also think it's always worth noting when we talk about those 70%, when we say that like they don't currently have kids in this district, that doesn't mean they didn't. They themselves didn't graduate from this district, and that, you know, I think we always say, well, here's for the 70%, we're here for the 100%, but in reality, those people were the 30% at some point, and that's how the system works. And good schools are good for the whole community. That's the only reason these houses are selling.
Yeah.
And good education costs money.
Right.
Absolutely.
All true.
So keep that in mind. Just throw it out there.
Thank you for the public comment. This is thorough. Thank you. Moving on to MAEA, from the association here tonight.
And she already served too, Sharon.
Yeah, no,
Hello, everyone. Can you hear me?
Good evening. Yes.
Good evening. How are you?
Good.
I think that we all can agree that this year, 2020-2021 school year was a challenging year. But I think for the most part, we can say that there are many successful stories from this year. I want to mention a few, and I'm in no way trying to leave anybody out or any group out. First, we would like to congratulate our seniors as they move forward with their lives. Whether you're a kindergarten teacher or a senior high school teacher, all of your past and present teachers are very proud of you and wish you nothing but the best. Throughout this school year, the Mars area teachers and support staff have worked very hard to try to make this year as successful as possible. But we could not have done it without all the hard work and perseverance and effort of our students. Many of them faced learning on LSI or in the classroom with wearing masks all day, and they were troopers in both instances. We are very proud of their perseverance and their hard work. Our high school was able to put on an amazing musical this year that they thought was never going to be able to happen. Again, that required perseverance and hard work. Many of our sports teams participated to their fullest, and many of them brought championships home to our school. And that makes us all very proud. At the K-6 level, just last week and today, teachers came together to give our students an end of the year field day, providing them with fun memories and some sense of normalcy. I have to say that both students and teachers really did enjoy the day. It was a nice change. As an association, we do in fact support our paraprofessionals, our custodians, and our secretaries. We are so proud to have them as part of our Mars family. As teachers, we know that we could not do our jobs without all their hard work and support. It truly does take a village. Please consider offering these men and women a fair contract that shows how valued and important they are to the Mars Area School District. Please have a safe and well-deserved, relaxing summer vacation. Thank you.
Thank you. Administration, Dr. Gross?
I have nothing.
Dr. McMahon? Ms. Branstetter? Josh?
Nothing this evening.
These guys are quick tonight. Board, we're going to start on this side. So board, closing argument.
I can share a quick little tidbit. The fifth graders, congratulations to the fifth graders for graduating from DARE today. That's always exciting. There's only 6 school districts, the DARE people said, that actually had them in the buildings, and we are one of them. So thanks to administration for allowing them in a safe way to be with our kids. The rapport between the officers and the kids is awesome to see every year, and I'm thankful for that program for the kids. So congratulations to the fifth graders, and congratulations to the eighth graders for their online graduation, and for the seniors in the parking lot this Thursday or Friday, depending on the weather. I'm excited about that because I have one graduating. So congratulations, everybody, and on to a great summer.
Whoever has any influence on the weather?
Yeah. Right.
You saw about the Thursday?
Yeah.
Friday looks really good.
Yeah, Friday looks really good, yeah.
Jumping sides, which side over here?
Happy last day of school.
Yeah.
Let's hope that 21-22 feels a lot more normal. And we did it. We got through it. But we've done it without our really terrific kids and the families who support them. Our amazing teachers who did very busy jobs with extra arms and legs and buttons and everything else this year. It was incredible. Our support staff who made it safe and made it welcome and found new ways to get the job done. And I will echo Mr. Inesco's comments in terms of our administration. It was our brand new superintendent walked in the door and bravely said, "These kids are coming to school." That was his recommendation with the support of the administrative team, Dr. McMahon and building principals and our building level directors. Said, "We're bringing our special ed kids in. We're bringing them in." I know, but you know what? It hasn't been an easy year, and I say this and I'm sort of laughing. But when you have an administration that has courage and bravery and a focus on education, it makes it an easy to be a board member. And it wasn't this board, it was this administration
that made that very courageous recommendation, and our job was simply to support them. And it was not easy, especially being the new guy in the house. So I truly appreciate you coming in and getting it right. Thank you very much.
Anyone else? So I forgot to mention, we did have a closed session prior to this meeting. We need to have another one after.
Legal first.
Illegal, okay.
Just a short.
So we'll have a closed session afterwards for legal and personnel. Can I get a motion to adjourn?
Kevin's been moved.
Sally, second.
All in favor, aye?
Aye.
Have a great evening. Have a great
Thanks for
graduation.
coming out.